Brodes Media.
What is going on, everyone? It's a crazy day for sure. 44-6, though, last night. Pretty interesting. Weird reaction, though, by the city. We'll talk about it for sure. Before we do, if you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate the support. I love you all so much. And my personal Twitter account, by the way, @Brodes81. We have a lot of fun there as well. And lastly, if you're looking to buy tickets to go to an NBA game, an NHL game, a football game, utilize the promo code BRODES at SeatGeek's checkout page. You will receive $20 off. That's basically eliminating all the fees. It's a no-brainer. Get yourself to a game. You're missing out on a great opportunity. With that being said, enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. It's a very odd and strange Monday. Normally, we have some sort of emotions poured into this Eagles team, and it just feels like that's not the case today. There's not a lot of buzz, and I get it. You played a Detroit Lions team that sucks, but still, we're talking about Eagles football, and I just wonder, would there have been more of a reaction if it wasn't such a rout? If it wasn't 44-6, and let's say the Eagles won 21-14? I honestly feel like there would be more of an investment in the conversation, because right now it's so simple to die on the Lions were just an embarrassment. And it's fair to die on that hill, because guess what? They are a horrendous football team that might not win a damn game all season long, but because it was as aggressive as it was, it takes away from anything, which, yes, it should to a level, but at the same time, there was stuff that we saw in this game that we now can wonder if they put that together for their approach against the Chargers. There was something, right? The fact that they relied so heavily on the run game, and you look at the yards per carry that the Chargers allowed all season long to this point, that's there. There is a recipe for success. Now, you're not going to win against every single football team when you run the amount of times you did today or yesterday, and you only throw the football X amount of times. As much as we want to see more running compared to 2 or 3 carries a damn game for Miles Sanders like we once witnessed this season, it can't be to the level where you can't trust your quarterback at all and you just take the game out of his hands. Sometimes it will work based off of your matchup, but against stronger opponents, that might not necessarily be the case. And I told you this, I'm worried about Jonathan Gannon next week, because you have threats when you think of the Chargers offense. And I'm not here to get way too far ahead, but it's just proving my point of it's a weird, bizarre feel around the city right now, around fans that love this team and pour their emotions out, because there's not much of a strong thought after this one other than the Lions are so damn pathetic. But I think what you have to do is start peeling back the layers and recognize that while this game specifically, no, the outcome was not so mind-blowing and so debatable. It was somewhat of a snooze fest to the point where I would imagine once the score got ran up and it was 24-0, 30+0, it's background noise and you're trick-or-treating. It doesn't help that it fell on the holiday with Halloween. If you have kids or if you're with your family, you go somewhere specific to see your family. It takes away from what normally is a 1 o'clock game on Sunday afternoon on a basic standard weekend where you don't really have something else to take your mind off of the drama or the toxic football we normally see or anything along those lines. We saw the coaching staff figure out a game plan that made more sense for the long term. Be aggressive if you're Jonathan Gannon. Force the opponent to play on their heels. Get them in uncomfortable situations instead of waiting back and allowing Justin Herbert, let's hope not, torch you apart underneath. And with Nick, it doesn't have to be 75-25 like he consistently throws out there to us, and it quite frankly can't be what it was last game either long term. But how about we get more into the mix of 60-40? It makes me wonder, right, because there's so many bizarre things to wonder about. Why was Boston Scott never utilized to this point? Why was Jordan Howard never utilized to this point? Now, someone eventually is going to get the short end of the stick, and obviously Miles Sanders is a back that's going to consistently get the opportunity to get the ball. I was going to say get the ball, but that hasn't been the case. He's was going to have the opportunity as the number one running back, which is okay. But when Boston Scott falls to 3 behind Kenneth Gainwell, what made you feel like, hey, let's do it the way that they did? Aha! Enter some information we got during the game, which was, the offensive line say, hey, we got something here. We're winning this battle. Let's stick with that. And I don't know how to look at this, because if I'm trying to analyze who Nick Sirianni is that Nick Sirianni having an entirely different game plan, and then once they recognize that this is what my team wants to do because we're playing an embarrassing roster, we should stick with it? Or is this what they wanted to do the entire time? Was Nick Sirianni going to get away from the run game naturally because that's what he tends to do, and he stayed with it because his team told him to do it? I don't know how to analyze that if that is the case. Maybe it's possible where he was going to stick with it anyway because the Lions blow. It is possible. I can't rule that out of the equation, but I do know that this team has found structure before and then went away with it pretty easily, so I have to remind myself that that is the case too. I can't forget about it. That is 1,000% the truth. Also, though, can you look at it this way? Nick Sirianni is adjusting on the fly. He's coaching on the fly, which is something that I am very concerned with him, which is he can't think on his toes. I don't love the fact that it's your teammates, your team telling you what to do, but at the same time, he listened and he applied it, and maybe that's a wake-up call. See, at the end of the day, they're 3-5. And I wonder, do some feel, okay, they're 3-5, that's what we thought they would be, so I'm not that disgusted. The problem is, and I heard Tim McManus break this down perfectly on the Fanatic postgame show as I was driving into the studio last night to get the reaction from the people, and he said, well, yes, win-loss record is where they're at, but that doesn't mean what the coaching staff did early on this season wasn't malpractice. It was a level of disgusting, disturbing, unacceptable coaching, unacceptable game planning that we just can't rule out of the equation. Now, if they end up putting the pieces together and moving forward as a unit without making as many abysmal basic mistakes, then we look at it more as the growing process. Or is it a part of who they are? Only time will tell. That's why we're still in assessment mode. But you would still think that there would be more opinions and more strong feelings towards your assessment on such a strong piece in the city, which is the head coach. It seems like most are honestly looking at the quarterback as not the guy. It seems like there's somewhat of a consensus. At least a majority of people have realized that he does not make the proper throws. Rolling to the left, Dallas Goedert, it got deflected as he tried to on a 3rd and 3. He doesn't read the field. My point I'm bringing up is he misses a wide open receiver downfield. I believe it was Devontae Smith off the top of my head, but that's the type of stuff that just cannot happen. He does not feel the field and read the field properly the way that you have to consistently do at this level. And right or wrong, unfair or not, with the way that you are properly constructed with assets for next season, time is not on his side. And, if I was a betting man, I would kind of bet against it and against him being the guy. I think that that's fair to say. You could tell that there's something lacking in his skill set that will limit what he can be as an NFL quarterback. Now, this whole debate about the tank is what's popping today, apparently. There are fans that wanted to lose on purpose, or, there are fans so worried about these draft picks that they don't want to win the rest of their games. They don't want the Eagles to beat the Jets. They don't want the Eagles to beat the Lions. They don't want the Eagles to beat any of these teams. And it also brings up Indianapolis where, the Colts might bench their play. What are we doing here? I mean, it honestly feels like we are now in a spot where if you don't win the championship, well, then who cares? Just lose every game and win 0. That's such a flawed mindset in sports. I don't want to be as bad as the Lions. I don't want to be as bad as the Jets. I don't want to be as bad as the Lions, Giants, Washington football team. I want to beat those teams. I want to be a 6, 7, 8 win, because that means you're not that means you're not as far off as you think you are. If the alternative is you're losing and you're a disaster and you're falling to these egregious teams. They're not going to win every single game, okay? They might lose one game to the Washington football team. They might lose a game throughout some of these, but you have to beat these teams more times than not. You have to beat these teams majority of the time, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't understand this logic of, well, because we know that they're not going to win a lot of games, I'm just pulling against them losing every single one. I want them to lose every game. Why? You do know that not being as bad as the Jets is better than being worse than the Jets. You do know that being better than the Giants is a lot better of a situation to be in than worse than the Giants. Not that that's the line. Not that that's what I'm going into the season saying. If you're better than these teams, I'm thrilled for you. But seriously, I mean, it's such an embarrassing way of... It's week 8. It's week 8. It's not week 16, 17. It's literally halfway through the season, and people are talking about how the Indianapolis Colts have to just tank the rest of the way and sit Carson Wentz because it would be malpractice as an organization. What are we doing here? In what universe does that make sense? Week 16 and 17. Yeah, you know what? Different ball game. Really, different ball game last year at Washington, what Doug Peterson did. That does not even come close. But I'm here in Indianapolis. They have to do this. They have to do that. No, they don't. What are we saying? What are we saying? You know how many games are left? They got to play the Jags. They got to play the Houston Texans. Do you understand how much winnable football games are left on there for the Colts? Like, in what universe is just tanking to keep their first-round pick? You're just throwing away this season where they could very easily be a wild card team? Where has sports come to? If you can't win a championship, there's no value in winning anything. I mean, come on. Look, there's a big difference between being stuck in 6, 7, 8-win territory for 5 seasons. At some point, you get stuck in purgatory. Right now, when you're trying to assess what you have and figure out if you have the head coach of the future and figure out some of your key pieces with $30 million coming off the cap books with Carson Wentz and actually having money to spend in free agency with all these draft capital pieces, okay, relax. It would be 1 year. Or 2, like you went 7-9 with Doug Peterson the first year, you win a Super Bowl the next and jump to 13. I'm not telling you that's what this team is going to do, but there's a difference between 5, 6, 7 years of being stuck in a 5, 6, 7-win territory and then it happening once after you start this new fresh regime of a coaching staff. That's not a long enough window for me to get so upset and so dialed into like, oh, they're a mess, they can't be stopped. I'd rather win 0 than win 7. What? It's foolish. It is very, very foolish. It is a horrendous way of thinking, in my opinion. But what we have to do today, of course, is the Anytime Hotline and hear from you after the game. I want to get your thoughts, hear from you, and we'll do that in just 1 second. But first, football fans, who's ready to score some free bets? Now you can when you bet on any NFL game this week with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers who bet just $1 on either team to score can win $100 in free bets. When a team scores, you score. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also get skin in the game with new same-game parlays. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Brodes. Bet just $1 on either team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code Brodes this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, let's hear from you. I'm fascinated to hear the response after the game. Here we go.
A 44-6 win. Wow. I honestly don't know what to say because we saw a lot of the things that we were pissed off about this coaching staff for, like being aggressive on defense, using tight ends, and rushing more. But it was against an 0-7 Lions team, so I can't really be enthusiastic about it until we see that against a good team.
And I think that's a fair way to think about it. I think that's honest. That's logical. So we saw pieces that we have not seen out of this staff consistently enough to this point. Did they figure it out? Is this part of the learning curve? Is this part of Nick Sirianni figuring out who he's going to be as a head coach? And here's where I do have a little bit of an issue with it. As an NFL coach, Football 101, you get the Football for Dummies black and yellow book. When you get that, it says run the football more than 2 or 3 times with one of your best running backs. So you should not have even been in the disastrous moments that you were earlier in this season. That's just pathetic on your part and, quite frankly, simply unacceptable. It cannot happen. So why were you even there from the jump? That truly upsets me. There should be a coach in place that literally understands it. Is Jeffrey Lurie involved because he wants to throw the ball so damn much? Is figuring out Jalen Hurts involved? Is this them recognizing that, okay, we gave Jalen... It's a little bit flawed, though, because I do hear from some of the fan base that maybe early on, and this is some supporting Nick Sirianni, that they were trying to figure out who Jalen Hurts is, so they allowed him to throw the ball a lot. But if we talk about putting him in positions to succeed, I don't understand how the RPO, the way that they went about it was the best way to see if he can throw the rock X amount of times efficiently. They still set him up to fail because, you have to figure out balance where the defense has to honestly look at your run game and say, well, there's something there. Now they know that there's literally never going to be any runs, which impacts the way that they could go in certain packages and really make it that much more difficult for someone like Jalen Hurts and to make him read the D every single snap nonstop. There's a difference between figuring out if he can throw the rock or not at a consistent pace at an efficient level, and then what they did with the RPO game and set him up to fail. There's a middle ground that they did not do. So if that was their plan, they did an awful way of showing it, an awful way of figuring it out, whether they get the same response or not. Maybe their result is the same no matter what they did because he's not good enough as a quarterback. That is very possible, but I can't date their malpractice offensive mindset through the first 7 weeks, not all of them were bad, right? They did move the football against some of these teams. They were actively going up and down against some of these squads. Atlanta in game one, and then they were going back and forth. Who was that against where it was nonstop? It wasn't San Francisco the next week. Who was after that? And it definitely wasn't Tampa Bay because it was whoever they struggled against in the red zone with. Who was that? That was wasn't the Cowboys. Oh, the Chiefs. The Chiefs. I knew it was a team that we looked at entering the season as a force. Yes, it was the Chiefs with Andy Reid. They were going up and down that defense nonstop. Like there were moments but majority of the time that was not the case. And that's where I'm kind of having an issue with that mindset of, well, maybe they were trying to figure out what he was. Sure, but you did a really poor job at doing it if you were the coach, whether that was going to be the same result or not, if that was inevitable or not. It doesn't mean I like the way that they attack their weeks. I think they waste days of practice going over certain concepts that have no business of even being in the game plan, and that I can't stand for. But is there a learning moment now where they put it behind them, their idiotic moves are no longer in place, and now they're just fine? I think no, because Jonathan Gannon is going to be scared. The next time they see an opponent that can beat them downfield, he's not going to tell their safeties, oh, don't worry about it if you get beat. They're going to say, you're not getting beat. Keep everything in front of you, and we'll see the same methodical approaches when teams dunk and dive and go through your defense at ease. I guarantee you see that once more. I hope to God I'm wrong. I hope they saw something in the way Josh Sweat, Hassan Ridgeway, all these guys could be utilized. And he was asked today, Nick Sirianni that is, about the linebacker position because Eric Wilson, who was supposed to be one of your top linebackers this year that Howie Roseman signed as a stopgap veteran, he was a health bomb last night or yesterday afternoon, and he said that they went with TJ and Davion Taylor because they anticipated their snaps growing, Singleton on certain situations, and then Sean Bradley, due to special teams, was going to get that nod, and he can't dress too many linebackers, so that's why they kind of went with that approach. They also mentioned with Boston Scott, they're going to feed the hot hand, and they realized in practice he was the guy. I'm not buying into all that. I think that's nonsense. You're really trying to maneuver around the question because I'm sure, what could have Boston Scott done to this point in practice? You just weren't looking in his direction. That's what it was. You weren't looking in his direction. If Sanders and Gainwell were both healthy entering a week, it would have been Sanders and Gainwell getting the nod just like they did. And how much of that is Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie saying, we drafted this guy, we want Gainwell to be, more of a force in the offense? I don't know. I mean, he definitely adds a lot of value there, but you're seeing how hungry Boston Scott was, and he's been on this roster before making splashes for this team and helping them win football games. Jordan Howard, there's a reason why he landed on the Eagles practice squad. There were a lot of concerns and question marks based off of his health and how many miles on the tires he has had. There's a lot of teams in football that did not give him an opportunity for a reason, so it was a little less on those regards, but I just wonder, I'm curious why it played out the way that he did. I'm not buying just, he looked good in practice. No, that's just coach speak answers. What's next?
I'm so glad I was wrong when I said the Lions are going to beat the Eagles. But for what it's worth, I will say shout outs to Jordan Howard, shout outs to Boston Scott, and shout outs to Nick Sirianni for actually utilizing the run game for once. Now, I'm just curious to know why he waited until Miles Sanders was out to start utilizing the run game. Could this be, a footprint for the future? I don't know. But we'll have to find out next week when we play a much better opponent in the Chargers next.
Yeah, I think that's basically the consensus here is, okay, how do they build off of this as a coaching staff? And I don't know what the situation is with Miles Sanders and why things always look different. I mean, we do know that there are flaws in his game. He does not properly hit all the right gaps. He's lacking in the passing game, but so does Jordan Howard, right? The way that he grounds and pounds, he lowers his shoulder, he goes up the gut, he approaches his linemen's gaps properly. It's just simplistic way of playing, but it's tough, hard-nosed football, and you're forcing the other team to play this physical brand as well, that some guys, defensive players want to do that over a 60-minute game, and you realize you're losing that battle more times than not. I'm sure it's not just fantastic to take hit after hit after hit and constantly get worked the way that they were, and, that's definitely a possibility for a recipe of success. Why did it take this long? I really don't know. Now, I will give Nick Sirianni credit here. The penalties have cleaned up, and we wondered about it early on. It was a mess, right? I mean, it was one of the sloppiest things we've seen where it was stupid, fundamentally flawed penalties where they told us that all they want to do is fundamentally structure these players so it becomes second nature when they're out there on the field. That's their concept and that's their belief as we were witnessing training camp and OTAs and all that kinds of preseason action. And then it kind of went into this ugliness early on. They have not been penalized at the same rate as they have. And then you even heard Jason Kelce. I was kind of laughing during that post-game stuff where it was roots on three, 1, 2, 3, roots, to kind of keep that funny vibe going of the plants and whatnot, which, it's just funny to hear that. But I bring that up to you because we ask all the time, what happens with the coach, and is he really settling in with these players, and how do they respond to it? Well, that laughter of Jason Kelce, it's easy to do after a win, which is what we've always stressed. Yeah, it's great when you're winning games. What happens when things get super ugly? They went on a tough losing skid, a tough losing streak. They respond against a poor team, and, that's kind of what happened. But, I do have to give Nick Sirianni the credit where the team has answered the bell and stopped playing such a dumb brand of football. There was a problem, and he fixed that problem. And it's more than just against, it happened against the line. No, it's been better as of late. Way, way cleaner, way smoother, way more structured from the penalty department. That doesn't mean it's going to ever go away. Teams get penalties all the time. The best teams in football have penalties. But as of late, and hopefully I'm not jinxing this, hopefully I don't sit back here after that Los Angeles Chargers game and I'm going, I'm an idiot. I'm a moron, and I've totally blasted this team and made this happen, even though it would never actually be a correlation between these words coming out of my mouth and actually the product on the football field. But you get my point. It just seems like it's going to go down that road. There was a problem that Nick Sirianni had in his locker room. He fixed that problem. That's something that I am seeing. They had a game plan and won the football game, whether it was listening to the players on the sideline or whether it was something that they wanted to. And you know what? Something tells me that if that was part of the game plan, now that I'm starting to think about this more, there would have been no reason for the linemen, the offensive line, to even tell him that. They would have just done it, right? I mean, if they knew, hey, our game plan's going to run it down their throat, they would never have to tell Nick, hey, let's continue to do this. So something tells me, now that I'm peeling back the layers a little bit, it probably was always part of the game plan to get away from it. And they're saying, no, putting their foot down. Interesting.
Hey, what's up, Brodes? Happy Halloween. Where has this been from the Eagles? I get it's the Lions, they're winless, and they're also rebuilding, but they look like a totally different team. They were running the ball. They were being able to generate offense. The defense was holding everything. They weren't falling for their own traps. I mean, I'm honestly impressed with them. I want to see more out of better opponents, but it's a good start.
Well, I think you answered your own question there. It's only the Lions, and we just can't forget that is the case. Why did they look like such a different team? Well, because of the Lions. That's exactly why. What happens when you play a team that can stop the run? And Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, they're not having the efficient runs that they started off having in this game. Well, do you get away from it, and do you start dropping back to the RPOs, and do you start having him out of shotgun consistently, trying to throw the football and trying to gain yards that way? Before you know it, you're going pass, punt, pass, punt, run, pass, punt. I mean, do you fall right back into that if you're facing a team that just literally, because a lot of teams want to make you one-dimensional. That's what they want to do. Take away one area of the game. Sometimes they don't want the ball in Aaron Rodgers and Pat Mahomes' hands, so they want you to run the football more. And then other times they want you to throw the football more because you have a Jalen Hurts sitting back there trying to throw the pigskin as much as possible. So it depends, but they want to make you one-dimensional. What happens when an opponent can action? That won't happen next week because that team cannot stop the run. What happens when you do face a team that can, though? And we have to also admit that a lot of your tougher opponents throughout the schedule are behind you. So there is an opportunity to get on a little bit of a run here of, I'm not telling you win X amount straight, but can they win 4 of 5? Can they win 3 of 5? Can they win and look, you have the Saints, and they won a game with their backup quarterback, which was wild, and so did Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys in Minnesota. But Jameis Winston's injured. Denver's selling pieces and selling Von Miller, and they don't have such a threat anyway, but going to Denver is always a tough task. I'm talking more once you get into the Washington Giants, Jets territory. But we do have to remember that why did it look so good? Because they were playing weaker opponents. Why was it looking so bad in earlier games? Well, they were playing stronger opponents, but also they were flawed with their approach too. Both can be true. And when you're playing a team like Tampa Bay, while big picture, they're a team with Tom Brady and a lot of offensive weapons, their defense was just depleted like no other. They lose Richard Sherman through the game, and they still can't get first down. So it's a combination of both, playing good teams, and you were just having awful philosophies with your strategy on top of that. And you're going to be playing teams not as bad as the Lions, but bad. You're going to be playing bad teams. So there is a chance to look better when you are playing those bad teams. And is that something that's going to correlate with the coach being stronger, coach realizing certain skill sets with players, putting them in better positions to succeed? And oh, by the way, you're playing worse teams, which just automatically shifts the energy in your favor of having a little bit more confidence to come out victorious.
Yo, bros, what's going on? This is Kyler from Southern Illinois calling. Man, first thing, the Lions stink. The Lions stink. They are awful. Jared Goff throwing it out of bounds on 4th down. Bunch of bums. Anyway, a team that is not a bunch of bums this week was the Eagles. And, man, I'm telling you, I think we need to get Jordan Howard in between the tackles. He was so good after being on the practice squad this whole year. Also, Boston Scott, very, very impressive. I was kind of surprised at the snack count between Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell, but they both got the job done.
Look, they're week to week, right? And this league is week to week. Just because they were guns blazing this week and it worked doesn't mean it will every single week, but there is something to it. You can't have the disparity. It's funny, right? Here we are. How ironic is this? We always want them to run the ball based off of what we've witnessed this season, yet when they go in this direction, sure, it helped you beat the Lions, but you cannot consistently rely on this method to take down a bunch of football teams. It's just not going to work. You have to find the proper middle ground to put everybody in the right positions to keep the defense respected and all of that, right? You have to have the defense respect you, and you just have to find the proper balance throughout it all. But there is validity to Jordan Howard's change of pace and the toughness and the physicality that he brings to force the opposing team to have to play a hard style. It really does, and it's weird that we're playing the Chargers that I'm going to bring this up, but it relates to what Staley was saying earlier this season that was blown all over social media, which was, the running game is more than just actually running the ball for the yardage. There's a lot more to it, to the toughness side of the game, which forces the other team to have to play this brand of football in over 60 minutes of playing at a certain pace. It wears you down, and it puts them in a spot where, look, yes, you love hitting players when you're a linebacker and all, but it's gruesome, it's tough, it's brutal. It plays an effect on the physical side and the mental side of the game. We go, here we go again. This guy's been mowing me down the last 12 carries. Here we go again. It defeats you a bit. And there's that side of the game that they were missing with Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, even though there were moments where we know that Miles Sanders can get you yardage and they can get you a gain of 20. And look, I go back to Mel practiced, all those screen passes, what a joke. What a damn joke. Getting back to Miles Sanders, though, there's a different level of energy and attitude and edge that Jordan Howard runs with that I really think could open up a different avenue here and a different level of toughness that other teams have to respect and play a different way, which could open up a lot more. Really can. You see Jordan Howard in that game. Maybe it's play action. Linebackers bite. Bang, you got Dallas Goedert open. There's some concerns, though, with Jalen Hurts rolling to the right. You can see his sheet, right, where the ball spread out consistently throughout these games. They're always towards the sideline, always, 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 and he's always rolling to his right. The tendencies of what he's doing when he leaves that pocket early, basically leaving that whole cuts the field in half, leaving that whole left side wide open. It's troublesome. It for sure is troublesome. All right, let's take one more call here.
Now, let me just say this. Of course, it's true that they played the Detroit Lions, who are by far the worst team in the National Football League. I think that showed itself today. However, the Eagles finally did what we've been asking them to do. My God, they ran the ball. Not only did they run the ball, they ran it effectively. And Gannon took the shackles off the defense. They blitzed, and I think you could see the players up front kind of felt good to have some free rein to actually rush the passer and do what they do. And Jordan Howard, I've loved that guy ever since he became an Eagle. It's a disgrace that he wasn't on this roster on opening day. And you saw how effective he can be today. Running over people, getting the tough yards, and it takes pressure off of Jalen Hurts. The question now becomes, does Lurie stick his hand in the cookie jar and not allow them to run the ball next week against the Chargers?
I can't imagine so. And if that is the case, I mean, you'd have to imagine if you're Nick Sirianni, because this is unique, to scratch Eric Wilson. There's something to that. That is a Howie Roseman situation, right? Gainwell not getting the carries that you would have anticipated. That's a draft pick by Howie Roseman. Is Nick Sirianni, and this is me diving a little bit too deep, and I don't think the answer is yes, but, based off of knowing certain players here, Howie Roseman caliber, Howie Roseman the tie to it, and they weren't involved, is it crazy to believe that maybe now, after a handful of games and they recognize certain things, that Nick Sirianni said, hold on a second, let's see this, let's try this, and maybe there's more communication and an open dialogue, open conversation than we maybe think that there is, or maybe there's more than there were in the past regime because they recognize whatever happened with Doug isn't working and it wasn't a recipe for success. Therefore, we have to shift things ourselves with their own self-assessment. Once again, do I think that's the case? Probably not. Probably not. No, I do not think that's the case. But it is weird and unique to see Eric Wilson scratched. But when you replace it with Davion Taylor, that is also a pick for Howie Roseman. And when you think of TJ Edwards, that is a nice find if he and he was a dog. He was getting in there, meeting at the line of scrimmage and all. TJ Edwards made some plays, and Sean Bradley. I mean, so yes, a veteran signing compared to pieces that are draft picks. You'd rather get your draft picks right than maybe a veteran one-year player like that. But we're not used to seeing any sort of commitment or acknowledgement to mistakes in certain players. Instead, it's always the opposite, which is support, support, support. And my point is, if you're Nick Sirianni, go look at their yards per carry. Like, you have legitimate reasons to support that more so than any other week with the run game. I can't. And Miles Sanders is injured, and you would think that also plays a role in this, where you just saw what worked. You literally just witnessed what we did. So, and we can't forget that why it looked so strong was strictly opponent. It was strictly opponent. Why did it look this way? It was strictly opponent. We can't hide from that. There are things to take away, though, even with that being the truth. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And someone called me up when I was on the radio last night, and they said, because when the callers get screened, it pops up on the computer in front of me, and it says name, where they're from, what they want to talk about. And it said defending Nick Sirianni. And I answered the phone call and was like, yeah, I believe in Nick Sirianni, that he's the guy. And I'm like, normally we don't hear that too much, so why? And he said, well, we're realizing that the team's playing better when you don't throw the football as much, which means Jalen Hurts is the problem. And while we can all acknowledge that there's an issue here with Jalen Hurts, I think it also could be said that it doesn't mean just because Jalen Hurts is an issue doesn't mean Nick Sirianni isn't. It could be a combination of Nick Sirianni's not good and Jalen Hurts is not good. It can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think with this, where, it could be that Nick Sirianni's still bad and hasn't figured it out. Jalen Hurts is bad, and the Lions are bad. Like, it could all be true. Like, all of it can be true. It doesn't have to be one specific angle. Well, if it means he's the problem, it means the other person's not. Or, if it means the Eagles did a good job at changing their game plan and the Lions are bad, both can be true, which is kind of what we're seeing here, which is, Nick Sirianni, Jonathan Gannon, they did feel a different way about their identity this week. And the Lions are bad. And one of the reasons why I think they felt so strongly about not putting the safeties high as much and being more aggressive and allowing that defensive line to play with that opportunity, as you alluded to, play with that freedom, is because they weren't afraid. What happens when a little bit of fear comes back in when you're facing a Sean Payton on the other sideline, or, you're facing the Chargers with Justin Herbert, who has a cannon of an arm? It's fascinating, and I can't wait to see how this conversation continues moving forward throughout the week. I want to thank everybody so much for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Brodes, and I will see you next time.